Welcome back. Yes, indeed. Remember some time ago, the House did talk about emergency stimulus package bill. Well, they're talking about something similar again. We do have Honorable Wale Oke joining us. He's the Chairman of the House Committee on Public Accounts. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today. So, just give us a background why the House is considering this new bill, especially if you remember that, the last time out, the Senate, many people are still waiting to see efficacy or see the bill become an act. So what informs this new one then?
Thank you very much. Good morning, viewers. We're in a dynamic society, and the House proactively, under the leadership of Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, passed the first stimulus bill. We are waiting concurrence of the Senate vis-a-vis the assent of Mr. President as required by our Constitution. The second bill we're looking at has to do with power and electricity bills and water bills as well. So if you're asking Nigerians to stay at home, they are not working, and then they have to consume, you can't put them in darkness. They also need water to survive. So I'm sure that informed the decision of the Parliament to also sponsor and pass the second stimulus bill.
If, having looked at the scenario as it were now, is there any thinking whatsoever that probably the House, since the Senate hasn't done their bit, could it have been that, or is there any thinking that maybe we might have just waited a little while longer such that we don't have to come up with this second bill? It could have just been part of the first one if we gave it a little more consideration such that it's a lot more robust and more holistic, because now, as a result of this, something that we might have been, knee-jerk, even though we appreciate the circumstances. Has any such thought crossed your mind or any member, you think?
Well, it's a work in progress. Even the first bill that we passed in the House, I've listened to submissions of experts, particularly in the tax arena, and vis-a-vis the organized private sector. It's a work in progress. We're open. The National Assembly is open. The Senate, in the course of considering the bill, might also take all those issues on board, and we might come to conference and address them.
But is there any communication, any information you can give to us about the current position of that bill in the Senate?
I'm sure that the Senate would have concurred, say for the fact that the Senate lost one of theirs, Senator Okon, representing Cross River North, and by our practice and convention, when we lose any of a member, we respect, we honor such member, by joining our sittings. And I'm sure that was what happened in the Senate, why the bill passed in the House could not be taken, immediately.
What is likely going to happen now?
So I'm sure on resumption,
okay, go ahead.
The Senate would do the needful.
So what's going to happen now? Because on the one hand, the first one is still with them. They've not given it that consideration. Now the House is thinking about the second one. So should the House pass the second one before the Senate finishes consideration with the first one? Are they expected to lump it all together?
Well, there's nothing in our rule forbidding that. So we are the representative of the people, and we are closer to the people, more than even the executive arm of government. So we have to discharge the duty of care that we owe citizens. So, and there's nothing preventing the Senate in our rules from taking both together simultaneously.
For now, what is the position of that first bill? At what stage is that first bill with the Senate at this point? And we understand that part of the process that is involved in this passing a law is that it has to go into public hearing and all of that. So have you scaled that hurdle? And this second bill that is also being proposed, what's the process that the House is considering to expedite action, given that there is a suspension of sittings for now?
Well, Section 62 of the Constitution has given the House, the National Assembly, powers to regulate its activities. And from experience and practices and convention, both Senate and the House, have the powers to amend their rules. In fact, to set aside their rules to discharge a duty that they hold in nation. So there are provisions in our rules, to set aside our rules in order to take a bill, same day and pass it and commit it to committee of the whole and pass such bill into law same day.
The concern a number of people have also raised is, okay, so this is good talk, and whichever way it goes, a number of people are wondering, how is this bill going to be activated in the first place? So the concerns are quite genuine. I don't know how you see that. So we have also talked about the complexities or the challenges of speeding up the process of this bill, because the Senate still has its own role to play. So how soon, what's the timeline that we're looking at before this bill can be activated?
Except for the fact that we're on recess, that we have to adjourn. Ordinarily, we should resume tomorrow, but we're also mindful of the rules, regulations signed into law by Mr. President, asking citizens residing in Lagos, Ogun State, and FCT to stay at home for 2 weeks, and there is a good synergy between the executive and the legislature. As we are proactive in the parliament, I've also read efforts of the executive to also, come forward with their own stimulus bill, but the parliament can reconvene, if the need arises to urgently address these issues.
Well, you have suggested that it is possible for the House to initiate a bill and pass that bill the very same day. Correct me if I'm wrong, that means that the public hearing element is taken out.
Yeah, don't forget that we represent people, and our doors are open. We relate people informally and formally. Citizens, professional colleagues, even schoolmates, have access to us through our emails, through our phone, and even through channels, medium that we have, that you are provided. Citizens have rights to, they have opportunity to bring forth their opinion on issues. They can also send their position in writing through emails, to the parliament, and we take it immediately.
Well, that's the thing, Honorable. The last time we had an honorable gentleman here with us, he did say that they were going to provide an email such that citizens can indeed send messages and different groups, but they keep bombarding us, and we haven't gotten any such from the members or the House such that they can indeed contribute. So what's going on with that?
The National Assembly has a website. The National Assembly has a website, and if you go to that website, aside the fact that you see the details of each member of the Senate and the House, you also have their phone number and emails there. So, and any citizen who truly wants to get across to his or her representative, they have unrestricted access to their representatives.
Well,
I can tell you for a fact that we do receive emails, even by WhatsApp.
Well,
submissions,
he was
opinions of
talking,
members of society.
he was speaking broadly for the House of Reps, particularly on that particular matter. He didn't talk about it individually, but we'll get your point. So could you tell us, has there been any consideration, and have you received any messages from members? Is it part of the consideration for this new bill, or amending, thinking about suggesting it to this one from the first one?
Exactly. Exactly. Don't forget that we live with our constituents. We also feel their pains. We listen to their complaints. And so I recall very well that a colleague of mine from Kebbi State, Honorable Koko, granted a press release where he moved that the bills, the water bills and electricity bills of citizens, farmers for 2 months, be waived. And we also have a platform as members of the House where we take such issues, where we discuss such issues behind the scene or not to Nigerians, that we have a platform on a WhatsApp group where we discuss all these issues. So, and then we take it proactively that yes, citizens should be saved, of such bills at this critical time.
Honorable, pointedly now, how do people get information to you, to members of the House of Representatives, to contribute to any law, as would have happened at a public hearing? How do people get that information to you? Because the last time we had that colleague that Chamberlain talked about, we had a tax representative in the House who was giving some very useful information, and he said he was willing to contribute that to the conversation. So pointedly now tell us, how do people get information to the House of Representatives? Is there a central pool, or do you still want us to talk to individual members?
Like I've said, for example, in my own case, and I can also say this for majority of our colleagues, in fact, for all of my colleagues in the House, that we're hoping we're available on our individual lines, telephone numbers, WhatsApp phone numbers, that you can reach us. Ditto our emails. You can reach us. We're open, except for the fact, and I also know that agencies of government and even the private sector that on essential services like communication, postages, they're allowed to work. So if you have any issue, any opinion, any mail to be conveyed to the parliament, you can do so even within the four corners of your room. You can send an email and we'll get it immediately and we'll respond to it auto.
This second stimulus bill, which the House is going to consider upon resumption, has got to do with providing citizens with electricity, if we could take a look at some of those highlights, and then to boost the economy through the informal sector and benefit all Nigerians. So could you talk us through this, the idea behind getting free electricity supply for 2 months to mitigate COVID-19?
Well, we all know that power is very essential, even for production of goods, preservations of our foodstuff and everything that we have in the house. We know that we need power, and regrettably, we all know the state of power development in Nigeria. I speak for myself. Power generation and provision, in my opinion, is not a rocket science. Nigeria is blessed. You have various sources of power, but as a result of what I would call sabotage, we have not been able to provide enough power. But as it is, we still need power, to live, to survive, to run our economy. So it's important. But aside power, there are other issues that we should look into. The various stimulus bill that we rolled out that we're also expecting from the government, even though the one we passed dwell much on fiscal and monetary issues, but I still look forward to see how the members of organized private sector and those who are also in the informal sector, who go on daily basis to farm, to a bricklayer, a baker, and hairdresser, who go on daily basis on their own to find means of keeping body and soul together, how we can look after those set of people. For example, people who have taken loans from commercial banks, we ask them to stay at home. The interests are running. People have taken contracts to build, building contractors. So how do you factor this set of people in the stimulus bill? Unfortunately, we don't have accurate data. I think this COVID-19 problem has really exposed our shortcomings. We don't have accurate data. We don't even know who is a Nigerian. We don't have accurate data. And how do we now protect the citizens? So we're at a drawing board now to really work seriously about our national lives. Look at the state of our health infrastructure, even though when the Constitution under fundamental objectives and directives principle of the state, address this issue, section 17. If you look at it, it dwells on net facilities, it dwells on, about health and safety of the employees, it dwells about support for the needy, for the people who are in need, So this situation in which we find ourselves has really opened up, the need to ensure that we put our facilities in place. We shouldn't operate by fire brigade approach. We shouldn't wait until we have problems. We start running etter and scatter. Even in advanced countries, where they have the infrastructure, you can see because of the surge that they have as a result of COVID-19, they are also increasing the earth infrastructure that they need. I've seen say a stadium being converted, public gatherings, where people meet in international, in US, in New York, for example, in the UK. I've seen where those places are being converted for to meet the need in the health sector to be able to address the COVID-19 problems. So similarly in Nigeria, I think we are now facing the reality that, yes, we have not done enough.
Quite a number of issues you've raised there, but we'll come to that. But we also do have Vincent Wani, who is a business and investment consultant. He joins us via Skype to give perspectives as well on this bill, the second stimulus bill. Mr. Wani, thank you for joining us this morning. You've heard the honorable gentleman speaking about the intention behind this second stimulus bill. What's your impression of how this may eventually pan out?
Well, thank you, Chamberlain, and thank you for having me this morning. The first is to thank the National Assembly for at least realizing the fact that there is need to provide some sort of package for businesses and the poor. And in my own mind, I think it has to be more coordinated than what we're already seeing happening across the country. And my first instance is to have a stimulus bill that is about sustenance, survival. After survival, we now talk about recovery and growth. But if you try to mix the two of them in a wartime, you will likely miss the trajectory. So what Nigerians need right now is survival. Remember that 85% of Nigerians live in rented apartments. During this period, and over 50% of Nigerians also depend on what they're making on daily basis to be able to survive. Poverty is prevalent. Over 100 million Nigerians live on less than $2 per day, which they have to make. So the first thing is to see how this over 100 million Nigerians will survive through this pandemic period. So it's about survival first. So the bill should be targeting survival. Post-survival, we'll be talking about recovery and growth, both for businesses and also for individuals. And if we are talking about survival, things that you need to consider are some things about food, what they will put in their stomach, things about where they will lay their heads. I just said that 85% of Nigerians live in rented apartments. How is this bill going to address the issue of tenancy for 2 months, for 3 months during the peak of this pandemic? How do you get food to these people? We've seen food being shared, we've seen money being shared, but these are not coordinated, not well coordinated, not fairly distributed across the country. We want to leverage on existing data, whether it is BVN, where we have them, whether it is bank account, to get this thing to the whole country, not just one part of the country or one demography. Everybody is in the same boat. You have asked people to stay at home. I'm talking to you now. We spoke yesterday about this program through phone, and I'm using data now. What is the government doing, or what is this bill? How is this bill going to address putting data, either for voice or for putting a credit, either for voice or for data in the hands of people, including the poor? And
Yeah, but I mean, I think you'll have to wait a little while before that stimulus package can get to you, because, I mean, they've talked about the people who will get it first before it gets to people like you. So I hope you can understand that. But then moving forward, when he did say that getting free electricity supply for 2 months, and you talk about survival, isn't that going to have huge impact on people if they at least will have we're hoping it will be a lot more constant now, the electricity supply, no bills for 2 months? Wouldn't that contribute in any way to their survival?
It will contribute, but remember that a whole lot of, so many parts of this country are, can I say, blind spots. Over 10 years, some of them are not even the national grid. So how are they going to address that? How are they going to address these people? So it's important that we look at free electricity for 2 months, but I'm saying it's not enough. It's not enough. Over 165 million Nigerians are connected, through phone. It's also easy for you to ask MTN, the Glo, the Airtel of this world to do something about their credit. Just instantly they can get this package, and some of them can even sell. You are looking at how you can put money in people's pockets. Sending credit to them. Some of them that need to convert it to cash can easily convert it to cash if you cannot get to their houses, like what we're seeing in other countries. So electricity bill is just less than scratching the surface of this problem when I'm talking about survival. We have to go beyond that. And I've just mentioned too about house rent. 85% of them live in, not people like me, like you rightly said, live in places where they pay 5,000, 3,000, 10,000 on monthly basis. Something needs to be done about that. Something needs to be done about them being able to speak to each other. And I'm saying, if you want to put cash directly to them, not the cash I see stashed on the table and you just gather a few people and they will line up and 2 minutes they are off. How many people are receiving this? Is it transparent? Is it fair? How can we monitor who and who gets it? So sending money to people through our telecom platform is one of the best ways to get to this poorest of the poor. And it's easy. Use artificial intelligence to know exactly who is consuming 200 naira in a month, 500 naira in a month. It's something you simulate, and really that will help you to look at to understand the poorest of the poor that are on this platform. And so many of these people we want to reach, almost all of them are connected to GSM. So let's stop this fragmented approach or something, as if we're not living in this world. People have controlled this using technology, and the way out is technology.
Dr. Wani, just give us a moment. We'll come back and get Dr. Oke's input or response to the point, some of the issues you raised in a moment. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. So let's bring in Honorable Oke and respond to some of the issues. But Kaide will take it from there.
Right. So Honorable Oke, Dr. Wani was talking about a few things, and he particularly said that he thinks that this approach is fragmented. And he raised major issues, talked about survival, food, that electricity might not it might not affect a lot of people, especially people that have to pay rent. So he mentioned this area. So I'd like you to respond to the part where he talked about he thinks this is fragmented, and what happens to those points he raised, food, survival, rent, and all that.
Thank you very much. I agree with Dr. Wani's position, and it's a good source of information. and we'll take his opinion into consideration when we meet to consider the stimulus the bill. We are hoping nobody holds exclusive monopoly to knowledge, neither ideas nor wisdom. So we'll take his submission. But let me also add that giving money to Nigerians is not enough. If you have money and you have nothing to buy with it, what would you do? I think we should go further. We should look at the farmers, we should look at productive activities, we should look at manufacturers in the agro-allied industry. This is the time to pay attention to them so that they can produce more. So that citizens, even when you give citizens money, they will have something to buy with it. If you have money at hand and you have nothing to buy with it, then what is the purpose of the money? And let me use this opportunity to plead with Mr. President to please pay attention to what is happening in Osun State. And just like he did in supporting Lagos State with 10 billion naira, you should quickly come to the aid of Osun State, because if you look at the rate of the spread of this disease, Osun is now number 3 on the list. So we need Mr. President's support in Osun State to quickly give us a grant as well, like he did in Lagos State and Abuja as well. I've seen some underprivileged people taking 5,000, 10,000 or 20,000 in Abuja suburbs. We also have suburbs in Osun State. Having said that, I agree with the doctor in totality that we should look at the issue of stimulus holistically from survivor point of view. I agree with him, but I can assure him that we will take this on board when we resume.
All right, we'll be watching that. But you talked about, money, that it is beyond money. You think that, money is good, but what will people use that money to buy? But in the same breath, you ask the president to look into the case of Osun and provide some form of grant so people can get money. So I need to be sure. Are you saying that we should do something else other than giving out money, maybe giving out food package or money and food? What exactly are you putting out now?
You need both. I submitted earlier that the palliatives I've seen so far, it's not holistic because there are people in the informal sector and even some in the formal sector. I am surprised that the Manufacturer Association of Nigeria are quiet. I'm also surprised that members of the organized private sector are also quiet because they have a lot of exposure in terms of funds, depositors' funds that they have borrowed and they are expected to pay interest on. Yet, some of them are staying at home, they can't do anything. So we need to look at this matter holistically. I agree with the submission of the gentleman that contributed.
I hope these issues will be added to that bill. I mean, you have raised issues also, and we hope to see that in the bill. I can assure
you that even my colleagues are also listening. They're also watching this program. Okay. And information is key.
All right.
It's important. If you don't have information, you may not be able to act.
Right. So the question is, pardon me,
efficiently. So I've been listening to this gentleman. Yes.
Right. Pardon me. So the question now is, yes, we've put out all these ideas, but how effective will the National Assembly's intervention be at this point? Since seeing that first stimulus bill has not even gotten to the executive, has not become law, and you're not sitting right now, you've postponed resumption of plenary. So how much of an impact would whatever it is you're doing be at this time, since even the things you have done have not come into fruition? That's a big question.
Well, like I am on the same page with you. We're all watching this program. My colleagues are listening to this program vis-a-vis the leadership of the parliament, and I can assure you they will deal with this matter. And aside that, they've also been meeting. The fact that we're not sitting does not mean that the parliament is on holiday. No, the leadership of the National Assembly are meeting with the heads of strategic agencies of government on the executive side. And even yesterday, on Saturday, the House Committee on FCT, we have about 4 committees in the National Assembly over FCT. I watched the meeting with the leadership of the FCT ministry, addressing all critical issues. But aside that, the leadership of the National Assembly, both in the Senate and the House, regularly meets with the executive arms of the government. I've watched Mr. Speaker addressing all the issues burden on the power with NEC, National Electricity Regulation Commission, addressing the issue of power supply, regular power supply in the country. I've seen the leadership of the National Assembly meeting with CBN governor, with Minister of Finance, with NMPC, because we are looking at issues holistically. For example, the fall in the price of crude oil, will go a long way to affect the 2020 Appropriation Act. And how do we address this? And I've also read in the media that Mr. President is sending a stimulus bill asking for 500 billion naira, and Section 83 of the Constitution, addresses a contingency fund, which I believe that the Parliament will see to, but we also want to be convinced what the funds will be used.
We'll come back to that point, hopefully in a moment, but I need to just quickly get back on this one. You mentioned it in passing. Could you shed a little more light on your impression or what you may likely be putting forward regarding tenancy? Because that's huge. You missed it in the first bill, but it's still out there. People say, look, for those who tenants or landlords may be breathing down their necks concerning tenancy, what is your thinking on that?
The Parliament, particularly the House, we like to take decisions from informed position. And that is why I mentioned earlier that, I adopted the position of the gentleman.
To jump in, I understand that point. But remember, you also did say that you have constituencies. They talk to you on a regular basis. So I'm trying to find out your own thinking, because you may have had a case or two from your constituency about this kind of matter. So because you make contributions on the floor of the House. What is your thinking on that?
I agree with the issues that have been raised. That's my position. I agree with all the issues that have been raised. And when we meet to discuss the stimulus bill package, I would present all these matters that has been raised there, and others that have not been raised there.
So would it be a good idea as well for landlords to consider maybe 2 months free for tenants?
There's nothing bad in that. Because some of them, particularly those people who are into estate business, they've also borrowed money to build the estate, and the interest is running, and they have to pay back to the bank. So how do we handle this kind of situation? So we need to look at it holistically, like I've said. So when we get back to the drawing board, we will do justice to all matters.
Let me bring this back to Dr. Nwani. You've listened to the Honorable speak on some of these issues, and you said earlier that as far as you're concerned, the first thing we should do is survive. Then we can talk about economic recovery and growth. But so far, from all the interventions, this one by the National Assembly, the House of Representatives, the first stimulus package, the second stimulus package, the intervention by global bodies, the intervention of the CBN, the federal government's plan, in which way has any of these things answered the question of survival that you are positing at this moment?
Well, thank you very much for this question. My own analysis so far, I'm sorry to say that some of these interventions, like I've mentioned before, are fragmented. They've not been able to actually address the quest for survival at this time. And I thank the Honorable for the way he's thinking and also motivating his colleagues to do something for Nigerians at this time. But we've seen this done in the US about 2 weeks ago. From the House of Assembly to the Senate, and signing of that bill took less than 2 weeks. because we're in a wartime and you have to take decisions and get these bills out as early as yesterday. So timeline is also important. I spoke about centrality, ability to use data. Even if we don't have central data, unique data that connects all Nigerians, who we are, where we are, what we're doing, but we can still start from somewhere. And one of the biggest data we have, like I said before, is our telecom, data in the telecom industry. We can use that. I'll receive text message. My wife have received text message from the NCDC. What are we using if we can receive text message, which means they will be able to know where we are in terms of technology, even know who and who are around us if we really want to do this isolation riding on technology. So technology is important that we look at it at this time. And also having said that, like I said, recovery and survival, then recovery. If you try to mix all of them, it becomes so clumsy. The tenancy have to be giving some moratorium. How do you deal with the interest, bank interest for real estate developers and people that are owing the banks? These are issues. But right now, what Nigerians need is food and some little money to cruise through this period. And I'm also a little bit worried that some of these bills and interventions we're seeing are not actually knowledge-based. In the US, you find out that JP Morgan or analysts working with the COVID committee have been able to come up with a robust model, knowing when all of this issue will get to the peak, which part of their country, in terms of geography, will be most.
One moment. When you say it is not knowledge-based, what do you mean? Could you please expatiate on that?
On what?
When you say some of these initiatives are not knowledge-based, what do you mean?
When I say knowledge-based, I, as an analyst, I'm looking for a model that actually explains all of these problems. Like other countries in the UK, the EU, even China, where it started, they have a model that shows when is this crisis, the COVID crisis, going to be at the peak. By that time, how many infections are we going to have? How many hospitalizations? When is the curve going to bend? When are we going to get to the bottom of the hill? Which part of the country will be most affected? Which sector of the economy will be most affected? How much? This bill that we're talking about in the House must be able to reflect this fact and model. So we also need a situation where the federal government, the committee working on the COVID, the health workers, the legislators are informed, so that they will work with volume, time, and everything, and incidence of this pandemic in Nigeria. This is not happening now. And that is why I say that all the interventions now, if I want to use the local parlance, are still driven by emotions and as a spirit-led, which has to be knowledge-driven, model-driven. We need to get analysts to work right away.
Okay.
So when is this thing going to be over? How many incidents? How many deaths? How many hospitalizations? How many ICU cases are we likely to expect? When? Where? And with this, we'll be able to intervene.
Well, he's right here, so we can always ask him to respond to it. Honorable, okay, so are all those in consideration? If they weren't in the first one, will they be in this time around, this second bill? So what is he thinking of your response to what he's just said?
I agree with the gentleman. And I told you earlier that nobody holds exclusive monopoly to knowledge. There's an adage in Yoruba land that a man who thinks alone, who reasons alone, who plans alone, will see nothing wrong in doing certain things that are ordinarily wrong. So we are open, we represent Nigerians, and we also have key agencies of government on the executive side that ordinarily should have the kind of data, that the gentleman has talked about. Even we in the parliament, we also have an agency that works with the National Assembly. We call it NAIL. So they research about this kind of things that is talked about, and we will bring all these issues on board when we resume. But I can assure you that the parliament, the relevant committees are working, behind the scene. The fact that we adjourned plenary does not mean that the parliament has gone to bed. So various committees of the parliament, we have vast committee on health institutions. We have House Committee on the basic health. So we have House Committee on emergency and disaster management. We have House Committee on
Right.
finance, appropriation.
You started
Everybody
out.
is busy. We are
All right.
working behind the scene. But I
Let
also
me ask
agree
you.
with them.
Just a minute, Honorable. You also did say initially when you started out that we do not have adequate data. You repeated that convincingly to a lot of people. So, as Chairman House Committee on Public Accounts, are you going to reach out to the executive, because there are several reports as to how much they've spent on this conditional cash transfer? Is it 3 billion in some instances? So now that this is going on out there, are they working alone or are they working with you? Are you going to ask them to give accounts in context of the data that we have?
Yes, of course. They will give accounts. Aside the financial audit, we also have programs like a performance audit, project audit. So we are going to look into various funds committed into this program and look at how judiciously they've deployed the funds, how efficiency, we're going to measure all that. Those are the things we do behind the scene. We don't have to come out here and on daily basis and tell you what we are doing. But honestly, we are working on all these issues behind the scene. The fact that we're on recess, the fact that we are not meeting at the plenary, does not mean that we're on holiday. We are not on holiday.
Okay, let's take this back to Dr. Nwani. And I recall earlier he talked about this being a fragmented approach. He says that he believes that the different initiatives are not knowledge-based. And we're looking at a time, of this period especially, is a time we should work together. All the ideas should come together and ensure that we get Nigeria out of this and get the country running even better. So the question is this. The National Assembly has its approach. We see the executive also has its approach. There's a task force. There are different committees looking into this. How do you want this to be in some way coordinated? Who should be in charge of these, initiatives? We see that the National Assembly, whatever might come up, might take months to even come into fruition. A bill has not even been passed into law. Another one is being considered. So we're looking at months into the future. So who should be coordinating these ideas, and what do you think is missing?
Well, like I said before, time is of essence. They are on recess. We have seen that across the world, these bills are coming out in 7 days, in 10 days. So our own should not be different. We're all suffering the same pandemic. It's important we take that. Who should be in charge? Everywhere I work, whether it is in Germany, even when they are, when the head of the executive arm of the prime minister, the chancellor of Germany got infected. The country was still running. In the UK, the same thing. In the US, the same thing. Everywhere I've seen it is still the commander-in-chief. Because this is war. This is war. Why do they call president commander-in-chief? War. This is economic and health-related war. And we have to see it as war. The commander-in-chief should be in charge so that at that level he's able to relate to the National Assembly, is able to relate with the judiciary, is able to relate with even the security, because all of them need to work together. And the only point where all of them can be coordinated without fraction, or can I say power issue, is at the level of the president. President should be in control right now because we are at war and we should behave as if we are at war. That is what it is. We need to start from somewhere, get food to people, get small cash to them. As we're doing that, we begin to look at other palliative. Schools will soon resume at some point. We get the data, school fees and all those things for at least people in the public school. These are what people have been doing. Transport system, public transport. How do we subsidize it? How do we subsidize school for people, for people in the public? That is when we are not talking about recovery. But right now it's about survival. And nobody is talking about getting small money through GSM platform to Nigerians at the lower level. With this, within one week, everybody will get this money instead of 20,000, 5,000 that you hand out to people that we cannot really audit. The honorable member mentioned about audit. How do you audit cash in this? And this process of a cash transfer. It defeats the cashless economy we're preaching about. It defeats the issue of social distancing, because we see people gathered in the same place, people fighting and grabbing themselves. So government cannot be.
Well, Dr. Wani, just to point out that the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, yeah, she was quarantined at some point, but she didn't test positive for COVID-19. I guess you meant to say the British Prime Minister, perhaps. That's what you meant to say.
Yeah, so, Honorable, just a quick ones now, if we can, because we're winding down. Members, some Nigerians also think that the House need to note that having these bills non-existent for 2 months could also mean blackout. So they have to look into all of those and ensure that they're not squeezing us on the other hand. And then in addition to that as well, will there be any consideration on the part of maybe the CBN to do something about the stamp duty? Because these days, even if you transfer money from your account to another account, they say it's an inflow, they still charge you normal rates for that. Is that part of what you're going to be looking at as well?
Well, the stamp duty issue is before the Parliament, and we're actually investigating that matter because when we took our MTEF for 2020 budget, it was a serious matter that we considered. In our opinion, we have the view that even the stamp duty collected so far, there has not been accountability for same. We've taken both the FIRS and the Postmaster General of the Federation, the Constitution, the law states that they are to collect stamp duty. One is on contractual agreements, the other one is on daily receipts, all these bank transactions.
So when one wonders then, if that was still an issue, how did the House then pass the finance bill?
I'm coming, sir. I want to correct the gentleman who talked about knowledge gap in passing bills. The first stimulus bill that we passed, if you go through it, you can't just pick that on the shelf. We agree with me that it's a product of research and robust thinking. And for 360 members to have met and consider a bill and agree to same, I disagree with them that it wasn't knowledge-based. No, that bill, sponsored by the Speaker of the House, in my opinion, addresses fiscal policies and how you can use fiscal tools, to manage the economy. More so that we're in the period of crisis, and it will benefit.
On a lighter note, I mean, on his behalf, let me agree with you on this one, because you agree with him so much. So let me on his behalf agree with you on this point. But could you then tell us, timeline, when will this kick in? Because it's biting. Nigerians are feeling the pinch of this lockdown. Government is feeling the pinch as well. When will this bill kick in?
I agree with him. Like we say, when you see a reasonable man talking, a reasonable man is bound to agree with his submission when it comes to timeliness. And like I've said, Mr. Speaker, the Senate President, my colleagues, they are watching this program, and I can tell you, I can assure you that we will respond to this issue timeously. Don't forget that the executive can bring forth their policies, their programs, but it is the duty of the Parliament to sharpen these policies and drive them, and we'll do just that. Okay,
Honorable, we do thank you for your time, even though some people say they've checked, they didn't see some of your contact details on the website, so I think your staff may need to update that. So we do thank you for coming in. Honorable Wale Oke is the Chairman, House Committee on Public Accounts. Dr. Vincent Wani, you heard him. He agreed with you on a lot of those issues that you have raised. We also do thank you for coming on this morning, business and investment consultant. So we'll be back in a moment and focus on another perspective on our ongoing quest to tackle COVID-19. Stay with us.